Okay, so we're live now.
Hi, everybody.
Hey,
Hello, hello.
We're here with our honors coffee break. We are joining you live from the Honors College, where we are all socially quarantined or socially isolated in our respective offices. I'm Ashley Williams, your senior Barksdale fellow. With me, we have.
I'm Anthony Heaven, your development officer.
And Scotty Polston, your IT administrator.
Great. So the three of us decided that while we're all, socially isolating and not able to come to campus, we still want to see and chat with all of you. So we decided to do this live stream. I've got some questions that you all have sent in, and so I'm going to start with a handful of them. The first one is, Anthony and Scotty, what's your secret talent?
I knew you'd start.
Go for it.
I was gonna say I knew you'd start for this because I told Ashley that I thought all night about what my secret talent was. The only one I could come up with, because like I know I have talents that just some like only niche groups within my sphere of influence have seen, and so I didn't want to count those. My secret talent is if I can go into pretty much any restaurant in Oxford, and if the radio is playing or they have music over, despite how loud the room is, I can almost always hear the radio and hear what song and identify what song is being played.
That's pretty crazy. What's the weirdest song you've ever identified?
I mean, there's been some like deep cuts. Okay, I'll tell you, South Depot Taco Shop, which is like one of my favorite taco spots. A while ago, their music stream switched to be multi-genre, but whenever it would play Christian tunes, it would do the Chick-fil-A where it's like the Muzak, right? So it's MIDI instruments, no words. And I was in there on, I don't know, a Thursday night, a Friday night or something, and it's packed and it's loud, and all of a sudden it's like, wait a that's a church song playing in here at the moment that I was able to pick out. So there was songs like that.
That's pretty cool. Anthony, how about you?
So I would say I'm not going to use spoken word. I'm actually going to use I can wiggle my ears.
And yes, that picks up for at least for the Zoom call. I hope it picked up for YouTube.
My secret talent is being able to pick up vehicles at airports randomly.
Pick up what?
Vehicles at airports randomly. So.
Can you expound upon that?
I don't think I should.
Okay, that's all I needed.
All right, so the next question we have is, how is the Hoka building without any of our students?
Odd. I mean, to me, it's kind of odd because, I mean, I've been here long enough. I'm used to during the winter breaks, during summer breaks, spring break, there still being some presence in the building, and there's just not. And so it's odd. It kind of reminds me a little. Actually, right before we opened the building during the construction process, it kind of reminds me of that a little bit. That because there's construction still ongoing on campus, and so you can hear construction noises, but there's just a lack of people.
Yeah. Anthony, how about you?
So I think it reminds me of a party where the guests have not showed up yet. Like the party planners are there, and we're just kind of like, okay, like what's going on? It feels a lot like that. Like we're doing a lot of the work, but we don't have the partiers here. Like where are our people? I feel like the students are our lifeblood, and they bring a lot of energy. And so a party without the students is kind of weird, like Scotty said. What about you, Ashley?
I find it pretty terrible. I'm missing all my students. So, all right. If you give reality TV the time of day, what's your favorite show and why?
Okay, wait. I forgot to look this show up. Give me a second.
All right. Scotty's looking up his answer. Anthony, do you have a favorite reality TV show?
So it is actually classy reality TV. It's called Love Is Blind, and this is
that such a?
So it's scientific. But Love Is Blind is amazing. I watched it in like 3 days. And because it's a scientific experiment, like it's a social experiment, it is not like trashy, it's classy.
Very nice. Well, my favorite reality TV show is the one we're currently living
Robot.
Real life, that's right. Okay, I found mine. This is old. It only made it one season, but I thought it was immensely interesting. There, USA Networks ran a reality TV show called Combat Missions, and it was a group of military and law enforcement personnel, and they were grouped into teams, and then they were given assignments, or they were given the same mission, and then and then there was like a point system, and it ranked, and if they didn't win, then they had to vote out a member of the of the group, but it was all military oriented. So I mean, it was like 2002, 2003, and I thought it was immensely interesting because it kind of showed like behind the scenes stuff of
Yeah.
as a civilian that like I've never seen, and so yeah, it was a really interesting show, and it was also really interesting. So the reality part, the drama part, was all these kind of like alpha military thinkers. Everybody had the best plan, but how did they come to execute it? And so, yeah, because the one moment that really stands out is they wouldn't vote on who the weakest member of the group was, so they drew swords, and the best member of the group drew the short sword. And
Oh no.
yes, and it was brutal.
That does sound pretty brutal. Well, I bet a bunch of our viewers don't know that the three of us have been known to go shopping together, and hopefully, after all of the COVID-19 era has ended, we can go shopping again. So our next question comes from a viewer who wants to know, where do we buy our clothes, and what would you say your style is?
I'm gonna let Anthony go first while I think about that one.
Okay, so I typically buy my clothes at like Marshalls, Burlington. I buy my suits at Joseph Banks. I actually think my style is old man swag / contemporary chic. It's a little bit of the 90s, a little bit of the 80s, 2000s, with some contemporary chic in there as well. So
I have a follow-up question for you. What's your favorite place to shop?
probably TJ Maxx. I love TJ Maxx. This is the best. And Burlington, go back.
And who's your resident fashion expert when we go to the Delta?
That sounds oddly specific.
Ashley is my resident fashion expert. She's the one who made me get the purple and gray suit, which is very stylish. So she is our fashion expert. Because I don't know if y'all know, but I have a form of color blindness, so I can actually see certain colors.
Great, Scotty, your turn.
So most all of my wardrobe comes from Belk, actually, because Belk has a pretty decent big and tall selection. Because I'm 6'3", so once I found tall cut shirts, that completely changed my life, and so most all of my shirts and slacks and things come from Belk. A lot of my T-shirts I've picked up just over the years from this place or that place. Actually, I've been buying more T-shirts off the internet lately, which has been it's been an interesting experience. And of course, any concert I go to, I like to pick up a concert tee. So
my style is typically I purchase from H&M, and my style is essentially whatever is clean and looks relatively organized that I don't have to iron.
I understand that.
If you could give that a phrase, what would it be to characterize?
Yeah, Williams look.
At H&M, am I correct that the store that didn't have my size?
That's correct. It didn't have my size either.
Okay, just had to check.
Yeah,
I'm being childish now. I still feel bad about that.
Yeah, in the men's section, it went up to an XL, and I don't even think that's a normal XL.
No, it was like a slim fit XL.
Right.
All right. Well, now that we've talked about shopping, we're going to get into some other big questions. And this, Scotty, here's the really critical question. It comes from a viewer who might also be, a member of this team. How can we hack Sally Mae? She doesn't need our money.
What a great question. I don't have an answer. I think my FBI friend may be watching. I don't have an answer.
Anthony, you have a question? You have something to add to that?
I just think Sally doesn't need our money, and I'm wondering when Sally dies, who gets all of that inheritance money? Like, who is going to receive all of our student loan payments?
Obviously, we're not talking about Sally McDonald.
No,
We're talking
correct.
only about Sally Mae.
Yes, that's correct.
Another viewer wants to know, when are we establishing a biker gang? And my answer to that, because I think this is directed at me, having been a member of a biker gang, is how do you know I haven't already?
Facts.
So, all right, Anthony, we're going to start with you for this next question, which is, what advice do you have for the class of 2020?
Ooh, so the advice I would give is to, one, stay optimistic and humorous. I know it's a tough time for you all, not being able to walk across the stage and spend these last couple of months together. But remember, your best is ahead. These were great years, but there's so much better ahead. And then the second piece of advice I would give you would be to remember to, when we're young, people tell us, they ask us the question, what do we want to be when we grow up? Instead of asking yourself that, reframe it and think about what you want to impact. So you have the rest of your life to pick an area or a couple areas that you want to impact and allow that to kind of predict your trajectory. So follow impact versus just a certain sector or positions. Allow that to be what you do with your life and what you contribute in a meaningful way.
That's tough to follow. In terms of advice, acknowledging that this is hard, right? Acknowledging that this is tough, and reflecting on it, because these are the times, was thinking about this week, right? These are the times that that our parents talked about, and that we will talk about for the rest of our lives as a milestone, as a mile marker, as an Ebenezer, as a point in our lives that is fixed, that will never change. And so how we respond to it will very much kind of influence and dictate who we are moving forward. I mean, I think even Doug's email, right? He kind of talked about that, and he encouraged journaling. I mean, personally, I'm not much of a writer, so that's not exactly in my forte. But yeah, just remembering that how we respond and how we react to this is very much going to impact who we are moving forward. And so so if we're hoarding toilet paper, that's not exactly the impact Anthony's talking about. But if we're conscious of who we are in this moment and the people around us and how we can help them, yeah, absolutely. I think it can better all of us.
So I know I've been reading from a lot of you that you were worried about closure and about engaging moments of closure, especially with the idea that graduation is postponed and that you won't have a chance to say goodbye to your friends. I would encourage you to find ways to engage that feeling and to start thinking about how you can use this moment to engage your community, be it virtually, right? You can have your own virtual coffee hour. And I know that that's very hard and it's not very fair. Dr. Salmons emailed all of you who are seniors to commentate a little bit on that. And know that the HOCO is here for you. So that's the best advice I can give right now, that is a little bit different from what my colleagues are saying, because I think, like Scotty said, they're pretty hard to follow. Okay. I do not give virtual hugs.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, actually, just a thought from what you said. in terms of getting closure, yes, reaching out and connecting with people, kind of in general, yeah, it's there's a multitude of platforms, and it is not the same, but it can be as substantive as it is in person, right? Because now there's so many different options for doing video, in addition to an audio or text-based communication platform, that it's just not the same, but it can have the same level of substance. And so just reaching out and talking with your friends and intentionally maintaining contact with your friends. So something I've been doing this week, and this is a little off topic from the original question, but something I've been doing this week is reaching out to specific people who I want to make sure I'm staying in touch with, right? So like I have in Oxford, a set of friends in Oxford. We have a group chat. Like we have been memeing the entire time. And that's just kind of our thing. And for them, just the memes are very much a part of it. Whereas other people, some of the people I play online games with, like hitting them up and getting them in a voice call to kind of chit chat with them, whether they're in New Jersey or in Texas, just to kind of touch base. And then my friend in Portugal, right, just texting them and say, hey, how's it going? How's it over there? What's life like? And just keeping a steady, constant contact with people is huge.
Yeah, that's really important. Anthony, do you want to add anything else?
No, that I think you all covered it and were very thorough. I do want to say, Scotty, that's a very cute ring you're wearing.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to not touch my face, which I've already done several times, and so I'm fiddling with the items on my desk, including this like rubber band. So.
All right. So Anthony mentioned not thinking about what you want to be when you grow up and thinking about what kind of impact you have. But one of our viewers wants to know, what do you want to be when you grow up?
What do I want to be when I grow up? I want to be happy, in the words of Beyonce. I changed sometimes. Like I think when I was 21, 22, I wanted to be a college president at that time. Now I'm not so sure that that's the trajectory that I want to be on. I think that I want to be happy. I want to contribute in a lot of ways and help to address some of the societal woes in terms of education, K through 12 education, 12 through graduate school education, how we make it more equitable and more diverse, and how we make sure it's well funded. I guess I have a scope of what I want to impact, not necessarily something that I want to be in, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. What about you, Scotty?
Well, I mean, being the oldest of the three of us, I'm pretty much grown up. But definitely once I found a career in IT, very much the ability to influence and help in this space, because what I found is there was an old mentality in IT that was I am the only one who can do what I can do. Right? It was a very, very closed, self-minded sort of mentality. And fortunately, IT across the board has overcome that and has gotten out of that mentality. But some people they still can kind of get stuck in that they only want to do their own thing. So being able to help others in this space, use this space, IT as a space, to then help the community at large, and then to grow and scale that up is really what I'm targeting and what I'm hoping for as I continue career-wise, right? Getting to a point where as I continue to learn new things, as I continue to build things, and that I turn around and share that with the world as much as possible, and share that with the community in hopes that it will better everyone across the board.
That's awesome.
Yep. Wait, what?
It's just terrible because I can't juggle at all.
I think somebody has my juggling balls. You can practice. You can take my juggling balls home and practice during this time.
That'll be a perfect skill to learn. I can probably handle that. And then when we come back from all of this, I think, is it Noah one of our honors college students, a professional juggler?
Yep.
Perfect. He can help me brush up on some skills too when he comes back. Okay, really quickly, I want to know, what are you drinking in your coffee cups? What's your coffee drink?
I'm just drinking a Pike, Starbucks Pike Place brew.
Anthony?
It's too early to say what I'm drinking. No, I'm just playing. It's a French vanilla cafe latte.
Nice. Well, sadly, I only have water in my coffee cup right now. But
Mm.
typically, I drink multiple shots of espresso.
Yikes.
All right. So some of our other questions are: if you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Hamburgers.
Maddie?
I love hamburgers. I eat hamburgers. I will judge a restaurant based on the hamburger, unless it's not a American food restaurant. But yeah, restaurant or hamburgers are my go-to. Pretty much, like if I'm trying a new place, and now depending obviously, but yeah, generally I will look to the hamburger selection, and I will start there.
Ice cream, because there's a lot of variety in ice cream. I love chocolate. I love brownies. I can get brownie ice cream. I think there's just so much variety in ice cream. It would just never get boring to me.
My answer is lentils. I love lentils. Don't feed me like that. I really do. I feel a lot of judgment coming from down the hall.
Oh, wait, not this far down, because I was actually thinking it's like, yeah, a good lentil soup actually is really good. And then it was like, when was the last time I had a lentil soup?
I'm saying during this time we can start making some lentil recipes.
I'm actually looking for a red beans and rice recipe from scratch, because I bought. So one of the things that I purchased for my cupboard is dried beans, because I've never gone from like dried beans, soaking them, to then using them to cook with, and so I'm interested in experimenting with that. And I was like, oh, red beans and rice would be a good segue. Once I prepare the beans, get them soaked, get them going, and then actually get them into a dish that. Red beans and rice is the way to go. And so now I'm looking for, I found a couple recipes, and I'm kind of like sizing them up and figuring out what I think is going to be best, or delicious rather.
Well, what I'm hearing is that our viewers need to send us in some favorite home recipes for red beans and rice.
I would be down, absolutely. Because I wondered, so I have a friend in Louisiana, and it was like, man, I wonder if he's got one. I might need to hit him up.
All right, well, our next question is, do you have any tips to stay positive?
So I would say watch funny videos and really like just Google funny memes. Like I've been seeing Ashley some that are very relevant to her life right now. And so find funny memes and funny videos, because they will keep you laughing. Sometimes at 12 o'clock in the middle of the night, you're just up watching funny videos.
Mm-hmm. I'm doing my part to stay in my routine. Fortunately for me, I'm in a place where my routine is not that drastically different, and so I'm able to kind of stay in my routine. And so, and for me, my routine also includes a lot of music, and then in the evenings, things that will entertain me, whether that's Netflix or Disney Plus right now, some of the books I'm reading, and then also video games. Because, of course, as the IT guy, I'm a gamer, so.
Well, I've been mocking much of my life with Anthony via text message.
So,
and of course, I've been talking to my colleagues down the hall at a socially respectful distance.
I'll say, I don't think self-deprecation is a means of staying positive, Ashleen.
I don't know. They can be pretty entertained at the moment, so it's working out.
And Dan, we're gonna have a 6 feet apart dance party soon.
Wait, I don't remember this being discussed. I don't know if I was involved in this.
gonna say I'm not sure about that, but I guess I'll be there.
We were all voluntold.
Only if
I think
Doug
we're
shows.
doing- What, Scotty?
I said only if Doug shows.
Oh, I think DSG needs to be there. I mean, he is in your mug right now.
Facts.
The other thing is that we've been spending a lot of time outside, so I think getting outside in the sunshine helps me stay positive. Sadly, right now there was a thunderstorm, but I plan to be outside tomorrow and the rest of the weekend, weather permitting. I'm also keeping to a routine to the best that I can, so I think Sky's advice is really great. It helps you feel like things haven't changed that much, even though we all are kind of living in an alternate reality. Anything else?
I think y'all have it covered. Really, process like how you're feeling. I think that's important because I try to be like the happy, funny guy. But like last night, I actually had to sit down and process like how I actually feel underneath it all. And so sit down and process. That way you can move forward. It's kind of like let everything build. Then it's not like sincere positivity. It's just like an act basically.
Right. And maybe finding a project or activity to work on. Because watching the esports Discord, I know several students. I mean, many students are at home with their parents after having lived out of the house 1, 2, 3, 4 years, and so now suddenly, like moving back in with your parents is hard. It's difficult. So maybe finding an activity or a project or something that you can help occupy your time when you're not doing homework or doing your assignments. But yeah, finding something like that can definitely help. I think, through that.
Yeah. All right. So we have a couple of questions about languages. One of our viewers wants to know how many languages we speak collectively. I've got Arabic and English and some Spanish. Scotty, how about you?
I mostly have English, and then I have programming languages like PHP, Ruby, Perl, Python, PowerShell, Bash, Batch, and PHP. I don't know if I said that, but yeah.
I'm halfway proficient with English, and I think that I'm about 75% proficient with DSG.
Are you also proficient with code switching?
Yes, I know that language as well. I'm almost at 100% with that one.
Excellent. So another viewer wants to know what language would we like to learn next, and she suggests Russian.
Oof.
So I'll start. I know why I plan on learning Russian because I'm going to do a 5-month backpacking trip through the Caucasus. I haven't decided when that's going to take place, but I've already planned it out. And so in order to do that successfully, I feel like I have to have Russian skills or it's just not going to be as much fun.
Spanish for me, I've been on and off learning. I actually can read minimally Spanish and like understand certain phrases, but I need to become more proficient because at some point I want to do a Spanish-speaking country tour.
I have been looking at a little bit of Rust and a little bit of C, C++. These are programming languages, not spoken languages. Mostly for some projects I'm looking at and some games and things that I've been playing. Having a little more proficiency with C, C++ would be helpful to me. So.
Awesome. Well, we have.
Hey, that Russian is a great language. It might come in helpful considering the last election.
Or the next one. All right. Another viewer wants to know if we have any nonfiction book recommendations for casual reading.
I can. I've been enjoying the book I'm currently reading, which is oh gosh, I have to look it up. I think it's A Life. Let's see. It's by John M. Perkins, who is a Christian and civil rights leader in Jackson, Mississippi. His book. Dream with Me actually is the name of the book I'm currently reading, and it is written more as a autobiography, and so he's telling stories about being a Christian and a civil rights leader in the community coming up through I think the late '60s all the way up to today. And so some of the stories have been really interesting and also really impactful, making even me today think about a couple different things. And so it's been a really cool book, and it's been overall it's been very uplifting, even with the stories. Like, he's already talked several times about being in prison and seeing his children arrested for participating in some civil rights activities with him or with their family. And but it's been incredibly uplifting so far, and so it's been pretty cool.
Anthony, how about you?
I would say my book list is pretty heavy right now. No pun intended. I would say probably All About Love is the lighter but most is one of the more lighter books that I'm reading right now. It's about bell hooks. It's pretty enlightening. It talks about love and our approach to love and how we've been programmed based on our experience, etc., to view love, operate in love a certain way, and essentially like deconstructing that based on a feminist kind of epistemology. And so, but it's written in like layman's terms. I just gave a lot of jargon. I realized that it's actually like a very simply written book. I've really been enjoying it. It's kind of introspective, but not like you're going to be in tears every night while you read it.
Cool. Well, I am reading The Great Pretender, which is about some folks who went undercover into asylums around the United States to test out the legitimacy of psychiatry's labels and testing. I don't know if it's a really light book to be reading right now, but I would definitely recommend it. I also recommend reading Dope Sick by Beck Macy, and I've lent that out a couple of times. It's about the opioid crisis in the United States. So,
Wow.
any other book recommendations?
I think that my books are pretty heavy. I'm reading, and They Were Her Property. I've been reading that for a while. I took a break from it, but that's a really, really heavy book. And then Ashlyn gave me Ceremony. I'm starting that pretty soon. So I'll keep you all posted on how I like that one.
Yeah, I have a book sitting on my desk that I haven't touched in several weeks, but it's 21 Lessons for the 21st Century by. Well, let me just pick it up. Let's see, Yuval Noah Harari. It's pretty interesting. He's kind of compiling different essays and different works that people have talked about different subjects for the 21st century, and it starts with the technological challenge, and so kind of talking about technology in the modern space and things that we're encountering and problems that we will encounter probably over the next century. So it's kind of interesting to think about, but the chapters are structured really long, and so I have to like really carve a section of time to read through the whole chapter, and so that's why I haven't touched it in a while.
Cool. Well, on my desk, I'm reading this memoir from Bahrain, and I'm also reading The Penguin Song by Hassan Daoud from Lebanon. I have a really bad habit of reading like 5, 6, 7 books at one time, and trying to keep up with that each week. So I'm reading a lot of books, and as you probably know, if you're following along on my Instagram, I post recommendations on there all the time. So, we have another question. This is a little bit dark, but what's the most afraid you've ever been?
The most afraid? Gotti, I'll default to you first.
Okay. The most afraid. The most afraid I have ever been. Several years ago, actually, it was shortly after I started working for the Honors College. I got sick. I caught a fever that I just could not shake, and took the week because it fell kind of at a weird time because I had gone home for Thanksgiving, I think, came back, and I think on the trip back is when I got sick. Just had this fever, could not shake, multiple days. Went to a couple different clinics in town, and the first one was like, oh, it's just common cold. After a couple days, the second one was like, well, let's test. It's like, oh, you've got strep. It's like, here's some antibiotics and stuff. And so I had gone like Sunday through Thursday with a fever. I hit Friday, like fever broke. Finally felt good. Left the house a little bit. Came back, and then that night I just felt miserable so bad. I went to the ER, and they started going into this kind of heart protocol, and so and my blood pressure was through the roof, and my blah 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 blah. All these things were happening, and the doctor came in and said, "Look, we can't tell what's wrong with you, so we want to do an exploratory procedure, a heart cath, and by the way, if you have a blockage, I'm going to give you a stent." He was so casual with talking about giving me a stent as at the time, like 30-year-old guy was suddenly thinking about, I might be having, this guy thinks I'm having a heart attack and he wants to give me a stent. I was terrified. I was absolutely petrified. And that's easily the the most afraid I've ever been in my life. But fortunately, I did not have a heart attack. I did not get a stent. The virus I had, it's believed, the strep, actually attacked my heart. And my heart, like in, The Grinch, my heart was 2 times too big. Basically, it had swollen. As a muscle, it was inflamed. And so it wasn't working as good as it should. And so 2 weeks of bed rest, and I recovered, so.
Scott, I'm going to tell you that's a terrible story for this time.
But it has it has a good ending, at least, right? I mean,
True. Stay away from people.
I mean, keep social distance, right?
At least, at a minimum.
Yeah.
I'm thinking I don't want to do a health related one. There's 2 other that comes to mind. One I'm not going to tell on camera. I will give the other one. So, I actually went to China a couple of years back, and we hiked up the tallest point on the Great Wall of China. And I have a fear of heights, and I didn't realize that it would get so steep. So it was at one point we were climbing, and it was actually my first time like doing an actual hike up a mountain. And it was very steep, and I started looking down and thinking about how far out we were from civilization. And one of my friends whispered, he's like, "If you fall, they won't find you for days." He's like, "If you fall, you'll immediately die, and they won't find your body for days." And so I was like very, very scared. There's actually a picture on Facebook of the tallest point. You'll see my friends are like at the tallest point, and it's just like a cliff, and I'm like right here because I didn't actually go up to the tallest point. I stayed down because I was just afraid of falling.
That's awkward.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. My friends are pretty mean.
That's terrible, but also kind of funny.
I feel like I have a lot, so I'm not sure how to narrow it down.
Actually, your life is scary sometimes.
Sometimes it can be. I like to think that's because it's also a lot of fun and bold the rest of the time.
That's true. If you're not challenging, your fear.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
She likes to challenge other people's fears as well, so.
Those are all in positive ways. So, let's see. One time, so this is how I developed my fear of flying, which goes back and forth depending on where I'm flying to. I was flying from Salalah to Muscat in Oman, and we were on a very small plane, and I was sitting between a Salafist on one side and this like diva hijabi girl on the other side. And it was all fine. The Salafist didn't want to sit next to me. The other girl, she didn't want to talk to me. We were flying from Salalah to Muscat, and the flight started getting like really, really turbulent, and it started to shake really bad. And then all of a sudden we started to descend, and I knew we were not anywhere close to Muscat at that point, and so I started to panic. The girl next to me grabbed my hand, and then the Salafi man next to me grabbed my hand, and everybody started praying on the flight as we were getting closer and closer to making an emergency landing. And I kept thinking, is now the time to start this? It feels a little insincere. So as we were landing, the Salafist who was next to me, like a fairly religious Muslim man, kept holding my hand and praying. This woman kept holding my hand and praying, and the whole flight was pretty terrifying. And then we took a bus the rest of the way to Muscat. But yeah, sometimes I'm still afraid of flying from that experience, but here we are. So, and then one of our last questions is,
and I have to say, Ashlyn is one of the most she conceals her fears very well, and things that I think bother. It's so funny because she took me to the woods and the mountains, and things that bothered me that I was definitely afraid of. Ashley's I know these won't get us. We're fine.
You have to give context. You make it sound like I drove you out to the woods and left you.
They don't need any more context right now. We'll tell that story later on.
All right. So one of our last questions is, what's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten?
Best piece of advice. I don't know.
I would say it's probably protect your peace at all costs. Peace is one of your most valuable assets, and it's important to protect your peace, and that looks like making sure you protect your space from people who may be toxic in your life, or from people that together you both are toxic. That means making decisions that lead to a greater level of peace. So if you're miserable in an area, figure out how to change it, because life can be very long or very short. So I think that protecting my peace was something that I did not do well in my early 20s, or my late teens, or my middle teens for that matter. And so as I get older, I'm learning to be more intentional about it, and figure out ways to protect it, protect my peace because it is valuable. And also protecting it from yourself. I mean, oftentimes I know personally, I have really, really good highs and some really fairly low lows. And so figuring out how to navigate myself and protect my own peace from me. Because sometimes I'm the greatest stuff of my peace. So I think I'm the greatest thief of my peace. And so I think that that's been the best piece of advice as I head into, as I start to get older.
Well, probably the greatest piece the greatest piece of advice I've learned is learning to say no. You can say no to things, and you can turn down opportunities, people, whatever that may be, for whatever reason. There can be a lot of societal pressure to maybe do a thing, or take this job, go to this school, do whatever. For me, it was a lot of hey, can you help us with XYZ? And learning to say no to those opportunities, good, whether they were good or bad opportunities, but learning to say no so I could protect my time, right? Much like you were saying, Anthony, protecting your peace. Many years ago, I started a tradition of protecting my Sabbath. So Saturday is Scotty's day, right? I protect Saturday. I don't do a lot of things on Saturday because that, in the words you use, right? That's my peace. That's my time. That is just for me. So, learning to say no was pretty big for me.
So mine's the opposite. In 2013, I did a year of yes, which is where I said yes to pretty much every opportunity that somebody presented me, as long as it wasn't illegal or going to get me. And on that first one, that was kind of a malleable concept. But that year led me to some pretty incredible experiences. And so I've done a year of yes many times after that. And it taught me a whole bunch about leaning into saying yes to opportunities and not being concerned about my lack of skill in some cases, or not being as good as everybody else in other cases. And I thrived during that year, and so I've done it 3 or 4 more times. Try and take it off like every other year, right? Because if you do a year of yes every single year, sometimes you become exhausted. So sometimes I have to do a year of like maybe. It usually means yes in my world because I'm quite spontaneous, but that's what I would do. But I think that Scotty's right. Sometimes you have to say no, and like Anthony said, you have to protect your peace.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And I will say that I've learned a lot from these two, like in terms of what they just said. Like I've learned a lot from Scotty about like how you protect your time. Because time, one of my mentors recently told me time is an asset that you can't recoup. In a lot of ways, that's true. And so I've learned a lot from Scotty in terms of that, and I learned a lot about yeses, the things that I'm afraid of or that I wouldn't traditionally do from Ashley. And so learn from your friends. I think that learning the positive things from your friends and really glean from their positive kind of lessons and attributes. And if we start doing that more and being proactive and reflecting on it, we'll realize how much we grow as people as a result of that. So,
do either of you have questions?
I might can come up with some, but
We have about 10 minutes left in our hour, unless we want to wrap it up early. Anthony, you look like you have something to ask.
I think, what do you all think is your area of development and then your greatest strength?
like of personal development.
Mm-hmm.
I need to be a better self advocate. This is something that I have struggled with for a long time, which is why he's giving me that face from behind his coffee cup. And Anthony or Scotty's also chuckling because he knows that this is also true. So I am working on being a self advocate during 2020.
Recently, I have let my anger get the best of me in some personally unhealthy ways that have primarily only affected me, and only I'm the one who knows or is bothered by it. But probably in especially the next several months, depending on how things play out, right? My being isolating and being isolated and socially distant, it's easy to not work on my anger because, as far as I'm concerned, right, everything is just going fine, and just and maybe I may feel like I am improving myself, but in actuality, without other people around me, which is ultimately the source of said anger and frustrations, I can't work on that. So I'm going to be conscious about that, even when I'm at my house alone, or wherever. So that's probably the big thing for me personally. What about you, Anthony?
And then I'll share too.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's really leaning into how I feel and grappling with those things. I was kind of raised to where we really don't talk about how we feel, and as a child, I wasn't really entitled to feel any way other than good about things that occurred. And so, like now, I do not grapple with stuff well, and I don't really address how I feel, and I try to glaze over, which means I like shut down. So recognizing like that I have to lean in and really address how I feel.
Honors colleges, Scotty.
Some of that stuff has been hugely challenging.
Do I have one?
I've been trying to do
Yes.
this for like 8 years, and I'm still not really good at it. So
Oh,
maybe the next 8 years will bring better fortune.
gotcha. Can I call you back in a second, Jack?
All right. Well, Scotty was on the phone.
I'm back.
He's back now.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask Anthony, where's our next trip?
Ooh, that's so hard to think about right now because it's like I want to go everywhere now that I can't go anywhere. Do you mean like we've been talking about? I mean, we talked about Africa to see the silverbacks. I don't know if that's our next trip, but that's like several years out. That's the one I'm probably most excited about.
Rwanda.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Think we're also going to go to Tampa.
Yes, to swim with the manatees,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, I'm not thinking on this.
Yeah. So Ashley and I do like trips. I mean, we went to Sedona. We went to the Delta. Where else have we went?
The three of us went to Memphis, had a day out.
Some of the team went to New Orleans, which was fun. Where I saw Paula White.
We did. I did not know who Paula White was.
I'm like, hey, Paula. She's like,
Ashley, you didn't know who Paula White was?
I mean, not on site, just some random white lady walking down the street. So Anthony knew who she was.
Yeah, and how did she respond to you, Anthony?
she was surprised that she looked surprised that I knew who she was, and she turned around and like shook my hand and said, "God bless you." And then Randy was like, "Come on, Paula." Not Randy. Oh shoot, that's her last husband. Her husband said, "Come on, Paula." Oh God.
We are going to go to Mississippi Grand Canyon. Should, we ever make it through this COVID-19 era. What other things are we going to do?
I've been thinking about and promising myself that this is not our new normal, that things will go back to how they were. One of the things that Ashley and I have talked about is exploring more of our country that we have not been to. I know, like, I haven't been to Maine, and I've heard it's pretty cool doing certain festivals that were canceled this year. But hopefully, when everything goes back to normal, like places like Maine or other. Ashley's been to a lot of states, but there are a couple states here that I think we have opportunity to explore. I would love for Ashley and Scotty and I to do a trip to Nashville to shop. That would be really, really fun. I mean, Nashville has more than shopping, so we would like have a lot of fun doing other stuff. But
Yeah, and when that happens, one of my best friends lives in Nashville, and so we'll have a local on the ground that can take us to all the spots. Because usually when I've gone and stayed with him, we always hit like the new spots he's found and the new places, and so yeah, I've got a couple of pocket places in Nashville that I really like that he showed me. So
excellent. I'm hoping we can get to Scotty's home state of Kentucky soon.
That could be fun. There's a lot more interesting things in Kentucky now than when I was growing up. So there's plenty of opportunity in Kentucky.
And I am a Kentucky person. Fun fact.
Yeah, I need to look that up. Actually, I need to make sure because there's
certificate.
There's a data there. You.
I have my parchment. Don't worry.
Oh, I'm not doubting. I'm not doubting that you are. I just want they have a database of the Kentucky Colonels, and supposedly my grandfather was a colonel, a Kentucky colonel as well. And I went to go corroborate that, and like the database was down, and so.
You know who else is a Kentucky colonel? Anthony, can you guess? They're on our team.
Is it John?
Dr. Sammons, yes.
Yeah, Dr. Sammons.
So
that's fun. I don't think I knew that.
There are a whole bunch of us out there walking around the world.
Yeah, I do know there's a faculty member. Oh gosh, I can't.
Hall.
Yes, thank you. I was thinking Matt, but yeah, Matthew Hall is also a Kentucky colonel.
I'm just saying, it's an exclusive club.
No, it's really not. It's
absolutely not.
Yeah, in case you don't want to go look it up, a Kentucky colonel is basically a honor bestowed by the state legislature of Kentucky upon those people who have been deemed worthy. What that means is they've been nominated by some state legislature or senator, and so yeah, I don't know how exclusive we're talking,
It's not exclusive at all.
but there is a bureaucratic process you have to go through. So,
But I wear that title proudly. I've had it since 2010. I've spent the last decade as a proud colonel.
as well you should, because it ultimately started because of the Kentucky Colonel and his fried chicken.
I
All
will
right.
often say that I want to go to Montana, but I have to go with a group of white people because I'm black. No said.
Well, we will welcome you. All right. We are just about out of time, so this is me signing off.
Bye, y'all.
Yep. Goodbye. Good luck. And we're here. We're here. We're available if you need to reach out to us via email. We all have Zoom, which is how we're facilitating this. So if you need to stare at an ugly mug, while you talk about something, or if you're having an issue with something, feel free to reach out to us. Pretty much everyone in the Honors College is available and accessible by email first. And then from there, we can set up Zoom calls, we can set up phone calls, whatever we need to do. Just know that we're still here to support you guys. So yeah.
I have a song to end us out with, okay?
Okay.
Y'all might remember this because y'all are like young enough to. So long, farewell to you, my friend.
No.
Oh, I know the song, just not that rendition.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go look
Alright.
that up.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Bye, everybody.